This is part 3 of my breakdown of a panel discussion with a local from Truckee. In this part, she talks about the Truckee Way and touches on the topic of the fire cameras. If you've not caught my previous videos covering this particular panel discussion, then I'll just mention that I have altered the pitch in this. This individual is not someone that we are aware of, someone that we know, but because they are from Truckee, I thought that I should at least alter the pitch of their voice to make them less recognisable. So let's jump in and see what this local had to say about the Truckee Way and about the fire cameras.
What is this Truckee Way that everyone keeps talking about?
So that was like one of my biggest motivations to come on here and try and clarify that up is like, what is the YouTuber's name who's from Tennessee? She did the original interview with Megan.
Wait, what?
That Michelle?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Michelle was the interview. She's done everybody.
Yes, and she is from Tennessee, and I almost feel like she would understand this the most. The Truckee Way, it's a small town where, like, yes, everyone has everyone's back, but it's like the type where if you get a flat tire on the side of the road, there's like 10 people who you can call outside of your family to come help you, or it's going to be guaranteed that like 3 people that you know are going to drive by and come help you. And that was one of the things that really frustrated me, is that there was this picture being painted of Truckee as that, like, you know, we all have each other's backs, like we'll do whatever it takes to cover up whatever it is that people do. And it's really not like that here. To me, the Truckee Way and the Truckee Way that I was born and raised with is you look out for each other. If someone needs help, you help them. But I mean, we have morals here, we have class here, we have, you know, like I'm not tying religion into this a lot, but like, you know, we have a lot of religious people here, and it's a type of community where it's so small. Everybody does know everyone, but everyone, I don't want to say will have each other's back, but everybody will help each other here. And this whole new Truckee Way that is being illustrated, it just seems pretty inaccurate of what actually goes on here.
So, on one hand, I get what she's saying. Okay, admittedly, she did pause for quite some time before she started trying to dig in and explain the Truckee Way. But I get what she's saying here. She says twice everyone has everyone's back, but then she's like, but it's not really like that. And it's about people looking out for each other. It's about, in a positive sense, a sense of community where people see someone needs help and they help out. I get that. And on the surface, I think we can see that that does happen. And from the stories that she's given, someone being broken down on the side of the road and they can expect that someone will come by and help them. Yeah, we can see that that is what she's talking about. But that's something that you see in small communities everywhere. It's not something unique. But here's where I have problems with it. The concept of no surprises. This whole idea that there needs to be early warning, and I'm quoting here, early warning of potential problems or upcoming issues is mandatory. Mandatory. That's heavy wording. That's not just a nice little friendly community watching out for each other, helping each other out when they need help. That's, we need to know before the shit hits the fan. And it's mandatory. You must do it. That's different. That's not little hopping and skipping down the road and singing little songs. To me, that is significant. To me, there is a darker purpose there. And the notion of taking away the personal side of decision making. I can understand on one hand that when there's a dispute that you need to put aside emotions in that dispute and deal with facts. But that shouldn't come at the cost of the individual. And my interpretation of what they're saying with the Truckee Way, they're saying non-adversarial decision making. They want to separate the people from the problem. To me, that's more than just putting aside emotions. That's putting aside the people and coming up with the solution that suits the most individuals. They actually say the outcome should meet multiple interests. So the outcome isn't about what's right or who's in the right or who should be entitled to whatever the outcome should be. No, it's about serving multiple interests. And then the final paragraph, when they're talking about the Truckee Way, applying the Truckee Way requires constant recommitment, effort and learning. Rewards for town and community are well worth the cost. To me, all this says that you have a community here that values itself, the community, above the individual. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but from all the things that I see here, that's what I see. And maybe, yes, it does have the positive elements of people watching out for other people and helping other people when they need help. But let's get real. There is corruption in Truckee. And people turn a blind eye to it. And how many times do we hear accounts by people who try to talk about Kylie with people from Truckee and they get shut down? People will not talk about Kylie in Truckee. That's not a friendly, happy community who's got each other's back. That's a community who's basically putting up walls to protect their community. They don't want to talk about Kylie because they know that something bad happened. But they're not going to admit to that because that would be admitting that there are problems within their community. That's my observation. I may be wrong. I'd like to know what other people think in regards to this.
And I will expand or answer any questions if anyone has any.
Would you show your face for a minute to show everyone you're not Zanime? You don't have to, but it's just, it would shut so many people up.
I think this just demonstrates the absurdity of pack mentality. Okay, for starters, anyone who's watched Perplexed knows that when Lauren has someone come up on panel, she makes them have their camera on before she lets them up. So she will have, in this panel, already cited this woman and know that she's not Zanime. The other thing is, this woman doesn't sound even remotely like Zanime. And yet, someone wants to create drama, they want to be part of the drama, or they want to sound smart, and they've accused her of being Zanime, and now other people have run with it. Even though she doesn't have a hint of an accent like Zanime's accent.
And for anyone tuning in, like I said, I just learned who Zanime was probably a week ago through following this case. If that does any clarification.
Nobody knew who Zanime was until this case came. Like,
That's true. But Zanime has an accent. You have no accent. It is
I
not
don't.
Zanime.
And what's funny about Truckee is like people almost say we have like a southern accent sometimes, but we're nowhere near the South. Like there is, it's it's not so much this anymore. But when I was in high school, it's a very country community. Truckee was very small. It wasn't really discovered yet. I think like 10 years ago, some big magazine did an article on how it's like the most beautiful town, and that's really what brought the influx of wealth into this community, as well as second homeowners. But it wasn't always like this. Like when I was in high school, it was this like tiny little western town of kids who went and drove their four-wheel trucks on dirt roads, and I think that is something that we still see. Looking at footage of this party, it's like that's still here. But like I said, like I talked with you earlier, it isn't this like insanely wealthy community. It's not.
Okay.
I mentioned this in one of the previous videos that I did from this panel, but we know that the community is tiered, as in people come from different backgrounds within this community, and there are different areas within this community. So you do have the wealthy part of the community, the Sammy Smiths, etc. And then you have the working class families, like where this lady comes from. So while she's saying that it's not a wealthy community, and in some ways she is correct, there are average people within the community. But there is also the elite within the community. And that's the people that we are talking about in relation to this party and in relation to what happened to Kylie.
Bad Wolf, no, it's not solved. And that's the other thing. Let me just put this out there so everyone knows. Even with the video, even with what we saw with our own eyes, nothing is confirmed until police confirm it.
But they're not confirming it.
They're not confirming it yet, but they're going to confirm it eventually.
Will they? I mean, like I said, living here, I'm questioning. I'm like, well, as a local, will I ever even know the truth about what happened here? And part of me doesn't think that might be the case.
And there it is again. How often do we hear this from locals? The fact that things like this are covered up. How many times did we hear, before the autopsy came out, locals saying they're going to rule it an accident whether it was or not? It seems like people are just resigned to the fact that this is the way things work in Truckee. That they'll never hear the truth about what happened to Kylie. That the truth will never come out. And yet they still defend their community. And I feel bad saying this because I know that there are some absolutely wonderful people from Truckee who do follow my channel and Shan's channel. But Truckee is broken. Something's not right there and needs to be fixed. Truth needs to be spoken. People need to be held accountable. And when members of the community are saying, we know that we'll probably never find the truth, they're admitting that there is that corruption there, that it will be a cover-up. But people still do nothing.
As far as her going into the water, what are locals saying about the video? Like, did you know there were cameras there? Do you have no idea there's cameras there?
So I personally didn't know there were cameras there, but once I looked at it, it's for wildfire. It's a wildfire camera, which makes sense to me that we would have those stationed around this area. Obviously, we are a heavily wooded community, and as soon as any fire starts, people are going to want to know that. So it makes sense that those cameras are here. Another thing is it makes sense that those cameras are constantly rotating. I wouldn't know the time length about the shots that they're capturing, but to me it makes sense that they're rotating, and for some time of the day they might be capturing the lake, for some time of the day they might be capturing the mountains. I think it's important to keep in mind those cameras that caught that footage are used to detect wildfires up in this community. And looking at California, there's been so many wildfires that have destroyed towns, so it makes sense to me. But I
So it seems to be the general consensus, from what I hear, that a lot of the community just didn't know about these cameras. Now, what I find interesting here is that Perplexed is trying to get her perspective in terms of if she thinks that the cameras are legit and if she thinks that they show Kylie's car driving in the water. And what she's done here is very skillfully avoided giving her actual opinion of the camera footage thus far. Instead, she's basically described what we know about the camera footage, or about the cameras, that they are wildfire cameras and that it makes sense that they would move around a bit because they have to look out for wildfires, etc., etc. But now she's pausing because, having described the cameras and how they work, obviously now the question arises, do you believe the footage?
Now, wouldn't you?
How do they detect the fires? Is it just visually? Do they have like heat seeking?
yeah, so I
Somebody
mean,
behind that camera 24/7?
Yeah, they can see them.
that's not something that I personally know, but if you look at, so like if you go to that homepage, there's probably about 20 or something different cameras.
Oh, I've been on it.
Yeah, and from there you can see the majority of, the decent face of a mountain, and you can be able to detect smoke from there. I know they've used them a lot this summer to detect small fires that they were able to put out quickly. But I think that's like the sole purpose for this camera is to detect wildfires. And when I saw that it captured this footage of the cars and people leaving the party, I was kind of shocked. Like, to me, it was just almost like the right place at the right time type thing, if that makes sense.
I know exactly what she means by this. She's basically saying that it was extremely convenient that this camera footage suddenly popped up, particularly after the videos by Adventures with Purpose, because people were starting to suggest foul play. So what she's saying here, and I think also note her saying that she was shocked by them, and there's a good reason for that. So she's being very careful with her words here, but what she is trying to say is that, in her opinion, it seemed a little bit too convenient for the footage. And this is also based on certain knowledge that she has with relation to Boca.
But as far as her going into the lake goes, from the Y, where if you guys saw it, it was on CCTV's channel earlier. There's the Y in the road, and if you take the left where Kylie went down, it's a decent amount of travel to make it down to the lake. I think some people question how someone could have unknowingly gone that far down a road and not realized it.
Now, if you haven't spotted it by now, she's being very, very careful and diplomatic about what she says. So when she says some people question about the possibility of someone being able to drive that far down a road and not realising it, this goes back to Doug Bishop with "It's not a wrong turn road." We've heard this from CC. She showed us how long the drive is from where the party apparently was to the water. It's not a wrong turn road. You would realise that you were on the wrong road long before you hit the water. So, while listening to what this person is saying, just keep in mind that she is being very careful not to be seen to criticise law enforcement, not to be seen to criticise the community. She's being very diplomatic, so you have to read between the lines a bit in terms of what information she's actually giving.
You know, once again, it's like I won't take a side for this case. You know, like intoxication is a factor, darkness is a factor. When there is no moon here, when it's a new moon, it's so dark at night. Like you can't see 10 feet in front of you sometimes.
Okay, but we can take out intoxication as a factor. We know that wasn't a factor. And as for darkness, and hopefully someone can give me the precise percentage, but there was a moon that night. Now, I think it was 65%, but it was definitely more than half moon. It was significant enough that by midnight, when she supposedly, 12:30, when she supposedly drove herself into the reservoir, there would have been moonlight. Unless, of course, it was affected by cloud cover. So, and yeah, cloud cover could have been a factor and maybe it was pitch black. But let's not forget, it wasn't a wrong turn road. She wasn't intoxicated. And barring cloud cover, there was moonlight. And, you know, in terms of cloud cover, it would have to be really, really heavy cloud cover to completely block out the moonlight.
Yeah, I did notice that, but I don't want to forget my next question. I'm sure you've been down to that water a million times, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. I was actually in the Prosser neighborhood the day that they found Kylie.
Oh, wow.
Not directly at the lake, but within 3 miles, actually less than, of where they discovered her.
Okay, so you've been down there. So my question is, on that video that we saw, it looked like two cars, like one was waiting for their buddies or whatever, and then they stopped, and then they drove down there, and then they made the turn to go back up. Could they have seen Kylie from where they were sitting, or they wouldn't have seen her anyway? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I do. And it's such a difficult question to answer because, especially with the lake, like when you look at Prosser, you look at Boca, you look at Stampede, these lakes get deep very quick.
Okay.
I mean, it's a man-made lake, you know, so you could be standing at the top of it, and then within 3 days of water being released out, it can drop like 5 or 6 feet. And, you know, I can't honestly answer that if they could have seen her or not. Like I said, there's so many different, like there you have trees, you have bushes, you have different hills. It's hard to say. And
I'm not going to delve much into this part of it because I have very strong opinions when it comes to the fire cams. And I know that at the moment Shan, Squirrels on Fire, is working particularly hard on stuff to do with the fire cams. So it's not my area of expertise. I think in this instance, I think Laura is misunderstanding the fire cams. But then who does really understand them? I don't trust them, and I don't factor them into my ideas when it comes to what happened to Kylie. That said, watch out for Shan's coverage of the fire cams because I know that she's spent hours and hours looking into them, and I believe that she probably does have some quite valuable information to share with people. Now, the discussion after this moves on to Fight Club and fights at parties and just the general fight culture. So I think this is a really good spot, once again, for me to stop the video and let people digest what they've heard in this particular video. And then we'll come back to it and talk about fight clubs. So, thank you for listening. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment below. And don't forget, if you're keen for added videos, there's also membership available. It's priced at the bottom tier, so it's cheap. And for that, you do get additional content, not necessarily content in relation to cases. Some of it is about where I live. Some of it is me speaking in a more relaxed way about cases. It's just a bit of a mixed bag. Anyway, thank you for listening.